Jesus is our yoke fellow, sharing our burdens and caring for us. Cecilia Maria had graduated as a nurse. After graduating as a nurse, she decided to become a nun, and she made her vows as a Carmelite nun. At a very young age, she was diagnosed of cancer of the tongue, and the disease had spread to her lungs. When she was at the monastery, she used to play the violin and was known for her sweetness and a constant smile. But even during her illness, she was found to be cheerful, and she always had a sweet smile. In the final weeks of her illness, the condition worsened and she had to be hospitalized. But she continued to pray joyfully. She asked her sisters to pray and celebrate her funeral with the certainty that her encounter with God was near. She joyfully commended her life to God at the age of 42. Here was a nun, smiling and serene, although she was dying from a devastating battle with cancer. The pictures of this dying young Argentinian nun went viral in the social media in 2016. In our moments of struggle, when we are weary with life's burdens, the compassionate words of Jesus that echo in our hearts are, in the Gospel according to St. Matthew chapter 11, verse 28, "Come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I will give you rest." I believe it is this compassionate image of Jesus that helped Sister Cecilia to carry the burden of her painful illness. We read in the Gospel according to St. Matthew chapter 11, verse 29, Jesus assures us, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am meek and humble of heart, and you shall find rest for yourselves, for my yoke is easy and my burden light." There is a beautiful way of understanding the image of the yoke. We can think of it as a double yoke, a yoke where two oxen can work together. So the yoke is carried by Jesus and me. Jesus is my yoke fellow. I am stepping into the yoke that Jesus already shoulders. Jesus is carrying the yoke beside us. He is distributing the weight onto his own shoulders. That is a beautiful image of Jesus and me yoked together, pulling together. In this context, take my yoke then becomes share my yoke. Jesus is with me, sharing my yoke and carrying it with me. So when Jesus tells us to take his yoke, he asks us to allow him to stand in the yoke alongside, to allow him to shoulder the greater part of the burden. Christ's yoke is easy because at the heart of Christian discipleship, we find a person who is meek and humble of heart, a person who loves us and shoulders our load. Today, Jesus echoes this invitation to us. Jesus does not promise a life without burdens or weariness. On the other hand, he offers a way of overcoming them. Jesus' way is not an easy way out of problems, but rather a liberating way into solutions. Karl Rahner said, "In the torment of the insufficiency of everything attainable, we come to realize in this life all symphonies must remain unfinished." Sometimes in life we are so overburdened with our daily struggles that we are not able to let Jesus carry our burden. Inside each of us, at the center of our lives, there is a tension, an ache, an insatiable fire that cannot be quenched. That is why St. Augustine said, "Our hearts are restless until they rest in you." St. Paul reminds us that the Spirit who dwells in us gives us life. In his letter to the Romans, chapter 8, verse 11, we read, "If the Spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead dwells in you, he who raised Christ from the dead will give life to your mortal bodies, also through his Spirit who dwells in you." This is also an invitation to live by the Spirit, to find rest for our souls in the Spirit. The prophet Zechariah envisions the triumphant arrival of a messianic king who brings peace to the people who are weary. In the book of prophet Zechariah, chapter 9, verse 9 and 10, we read, "Lo, your king comes to you, and he shall command peace to the nations." The king here is deliberately portrayed as meek and humble. The prophet urges the Israelites and us to rejoice in the presence of our great King who gives us peace and rest. The clear message from Jesus today is not to be frustrated about our burdens. Jesus invites us to face our burdens joyfully with Him because only He can give us the rest we need. He invites us to place the yoke of ours on our shoulders and follow Him. The yoke can be at times painful, but if there is love, the burden can never be painful. May our love and intimacy with Jesus lighten the burden of our lives. Let us proclaim with the psalmist, I will bless your name forever, my King and my God.